Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You have tuned into the Rebel News live stream panel discussion on this, a Friday, June 12th, 2026. I'm David Menzies, and my co-host all the way from the wonderful province, soon to be maybe a country, Alberta, that would be Sheila, Gunn, Reid. And before we introduce our guest, Sheila, and we got a great one, you know, the city of Toronto, it's all a buzz today. Team Canada is kicking off in the World Cup of Soccer in 2 hours from now. And you know what? I'm really peeved off because I think the fix is in against Canada. Do you know, Sheila, Canada is playing Bosnia and Herzegovina. You tell me this, Sheila Gunn Reid, what other nation has to play 2 games in 1 day?
Oh, David, I care so little about soccer like so many people in the Western world. I don't know why we're even involved in this big, expensive FIFA boondoggle. It's a mess. Anyway, but I realize people like soccer. The entire world likes soccer. I'm the outlier, I get it. But it was a great dad joke, David. Let's tell everybody what we're doing around here. If you're watching us on Rumble, it's a great free speech platform. If you want to support the work that we do while having your say, I suggest leaving a Rumble rant. If it's over the $5 US cutoff, we are reading it on air. If it's under that, we'll do our very best, time permitting. If you are watching us on YouTube, same rules apply. Their paid chat is called a super chat. There's also an additional way to help us, and that is by way of a paid comment called a super thanks. And we say this because we don't take any money from the government. We never will politically contaminate our work in such a way. I think you just wouldn't trust us after that. So those are the rules. Let's get into the show and bring in our guest. David, I'll let you introduce him. And I just want to apologize. We're starting a little bit late. We had some technical problems. Go ahead, David.
We sure did. Yes. And our very special guest, folks, it is Ian Runkle. He is not only a lawyer, but a legal commentator, and quite a superb one, if I may say so. How you doing there, Ian?
Well, they've given me a whole lot of work to do because the number of people who are asking me about some of these recent changes is everybody, and there's no way to cover it properly in just like one video. This is going to be an ongoing project of trying to break down some of these bills because they're just there's so much in there and none of it is good.
And you know, I mean, hey, welcome to Mark Carney's Canada. It's a lawyer's paradise on so many files. Guys like you are never going to need a red tag day, I would think, Ian.
Oh, well, it's funny because people come at me and they're like, oh, well, you know, you're just saying this because you're a lawyer. Of course, you don't like laws. And it's no, the opposite. Like, if bad laws get passed, that means that lawyers are going to be buying boats. Like,
right. Actually, let's get right into that.
Yes.
I want to get the one that I know Ian best from, and that is the firearms rights issue. A couple of days ago, the Public Safety Ministry extended the amnesty on the gun grab to 90 days after the CCFR's challenge is heard in the Supreme Court, which would put us approximately 7.5 years out from the initial gun grab. And, you know, and these guns were so dangerous that we couldn't have them in our possession and they had to be banned immediately. This is one of those times where I'm actually cheering for government ineptitude because it's going to be real hard for them to make the case for pressing public safety when 7.5 years later, the vast majority of us still hold these firearms. And there's a lot of data now, you know, like 3/4 of a decade worth of data saying we haven't been committing the crimes with them. Ian?
yeah. And I mean, this one's kind of interesting because I have a bit of a different take on why they did it than most people. Because a lot of people have been sort of celebrating this going, oh, yeah. And, Polycysivien has been losing their minds over this one going, you know, why? But the thing is I don't think they extended it to do a kindness to gun owners.
No.
What I think the issue is that the Supreme Court is addressing this, and the Supreme Court is not likely to allow the amnesty to expire during the period where during the period where the Supreme Court is deciding this, because of course that would really make the whole issue moot. That would put a whole lot of people at criminal liability while they're awaiting this decision. So the problem is, from the government's perspective, and the reason why I suspect that they went this way, is that the court may not have the authority to extend the amnesty on their own. What they would have is the authority to suspend the operation of the order in council. And so when you see Polly losing their minds going like, they didn't even make the court force them. It's like, well, what the court probably would have had to do if they were forced is to say, we're suspending the operation of the order in council until after we make our decision. And, they probably would have said 30 days after or something like that. But that would have meant that suddenly all of these guns could be taken to the range again. And suddenly all of these guns could be, bought and sold and so forth. So the government took this step not to do us a favor, not to be like, all right, we're going to be fair to gun owners, but because they really feared the alternative if they made the court step in.
Right.
So it is good in the sense that, there's this extension, although it comes with this additional threat, which is kind of funny. It's, they're saying the buyback is going to proceed on pace, and there's this window. It's the only window. So if you wait out the court decision, you won't get, you won't have the opportunity to participate, which, they're probably not paying people their value. They may not pay people at all because they've said that they just have the right to not pay you. But, what they're trying to do is they're trying to force people who have like fear of missing out to act now. And a lot of those people, if the court rules in favor of gun owners, will be sitting there going, okay, so we gave up our guns, but now the court says we can still have them. Can I have them back? And the government will say, no, this is not a reversible decision. You gave this to us. We're not giving it back. It's a real, they're really not treating gun owners fairly at all. And they haven't at any step in this process. And it's actually kind of funny because in the legal sphere, most lawyers are not really pro-gun. It's,
right.
But I'm getting lawyers who are reaching out to me going, wait a minute, this all seems really unfair. And this all seems really, really bizarre. Like, this can't be what's actually happening. And I'm having to explain to them, no, this is how you're not misunderstanding this. It's, this is actually what's going on. And sometimes people are just shocked, at the lack of procedural fairness being, given to firearm owners, the lack of really any sense to this. Because at the end of the day, I can't tell you the last time I saw like a person who was dealing drugs who actually had a firearms license, or the person who is robbing a liquor store or shooting, a rival gang member or whatever, who actually had a firearms license. The competition shooters that this is aimed at, and that's really what this targets.
Yeah.
This targets people who are involved in sports shooting. They have never been the problem. There's never been, but they want to eliminate sports shooting as a step towards later making further bans. But they're just like, if we can eliminate this, then we can eliminate this pool of people who don't like us. It's all kind of vote shaping, if that makes sense,
sure.
rather than good public policy.
David, I'm just going to keep talking on this issue because there's one thing, as soon as I saw this story, I wanted to talk to Ian about it. Olivia, I know it's not on the agenda, so I'm springing this on everybody. But it was last week, I think it was in Le Devoir, maybe, or Global News, a story about SQ in Quebec, so that's their police force there.
Yeah.
Basically grabbing the PAL list and going door to door and then asking people, like the spouses of firearms owners, hey, are you being domestically abused?
Wow.
Apropos of nothing, apropos of no reports. They're just going door to door and initiating these conversations with the conjugal partners of PAL owners. And, I think it just proves your point about how outrageously unfair the firearms owning community is being treated. We're being treated as domestic abusers when there's no evidence that says we are.
I mean, and a lot of people are going to feel threatened or pressured when the police come to their door. But think about this, gun owners are not a protected group, but think about if they decided to do this for any other group in Canada. Think about, for instance, let's say the government decided to pull the list of everybody who voted NDP and went to their houses and said, hey, is your spouse beating you?
Right.
We would find that to be incredibly offensive. And, being an NDP voter isn't a protected category either. So, but we'd find that to be incredibly offensive and incredibly oppressive. But people just kind of shrug it off when it's aimed at gun owners. It's, if we suggested going to the spouses of police officers,
right,
and asking them, are you being abused? Are you being, do you need help? The police union would be up in arms. They would be, they'd be putting out public statements condemning us. But this is something that they consider to be fair and appropriate. And really, it's just, gun owners are sort of an unpopular group, so it's okay to do all of these things to firearm owners. It's quite shocking, I think.
Yeah, I'm reliably informed that police in Montreal have better things to do. David, I'll let you. You can have the show back, David. Go ahead.
No problem at all, Sheila. Yeah, and that's an absolutely outrageous set of circumstances in Quebec. It's kind of like the old chestnut. When did you stop beating your wife? Talk about a loaded question. But as they say down on the Midway, guys, let's not kid the kidders here. To Ian's earlier points, we know even the Liberals don't believe there will be a scintilla of difference in terms of violent crime with illegal guns after this.
They didn't even study it.
Pardon me?
They don't know. They didn't even bother to study it.
Oh, but in Gary Ann DeSangre's own words, he said it's not going to work. And then he said, I didn't realize I was being recorded. Right. Oh, I see. So you say one thing when the mic is on and you speak the truth when you think you're not being recorded. Unbelievable. What I'm getting at, guys, let's reverse this time-space continuum 48 hours ago. Let's pretend we're in an alternative universe where the gun grab has been completed. All guns on that list, in addition to the 2,500 that are banned, they've all been confiscated. Mission accomplished. Would that have made a hill of beans when it comes to Mark Pinizzato, 43, of the Emergency Task Force with the Toronto Police? He was going to an apartment to serve a warrant to somebody who the suspicion is an Iranian operative that was connected with the shooting at the U.S. consulate in Toronto. He paid with his life. Now, when this guy, this reprobate, Zara Jabi, he's still at large, when we find out all the details of this gruesome, evil murder, I wonder, was that an illegally registered handgun or was it an illegal handgun? Because you see, I don't know. I think if you're a criminal, by definition, you commit criminal acts. That means not filling out the paperwork for your pal. So that is what I'm getting at. Even if this was a fait accompli, this officer sadly would still have paid with his life because criminals don't obey the law. But this Liberal Party of Canada wants to criminalize law-abiding gun owners for politics, for political purposes, nothing to do, despite the garbage coming out of their mouths in regard to public safety. Shameful.
Yeah, we should make murder double illegal. Like, murder's already illegal.
Yeah.
The old joke was every time there was some sort of one gangster shoots another, it was just like, oh, well, this should be really easy to solve. Just pull whoever got the authorization to transport to go down to,
Right.
downtown city square for the purpose of shooting somebody else.
Right.
And, whichever person got that authorization to transport, you could. But I mean, obviously, they're not issuing authorizations to transport for, like, I want to go to my rival gang member's house and shoot it up, right? These laws only affect, it's only an obstacle and a sort of hassle for the person who wants to take it to do things that are legitimate with it. You know, you get things like, I want to sell this handgun. I need an authorization to transport, back when that was a thing you could do. I need an authorization to transport so that I can take it to the other person's house to show it to them. And they'd be like, well, we're going to process that request in 3 weeks, and then we're going to ask you for additional information, like, why don't you just sell it to him? And it's like, well, because he wants to see it first. It's a $3,000 thing. He wants to look at it. They're like, well, we're not sure. This isn't a hassle to somebody who's selling it illegally, because the person
Right.
who's selling it illegally just goes over there and hands it over for a fistful of cash. It's only the person who actually wants to go through the legal process that gets bound up in this. And the whole point was just to harass and hassle law-abiding gun owners to make them less likely to want to take up, handgun shooting or whatever else. Not because of public safety, but just because they're perceived to be political opponents. And yeah.
And Ian, if I might add, here's an anecdote for you. About 7 years ago, I was on an assignment with Rebel News. We were in the Jane Finch area. This is a very high crime corridor. And I struck up a off-the-record conversation with a police officer. He was sort of on surveillance, and, we were killing time. And he said, we were talking about the gun crime issue because there were some, notable shootings. He knew places where you can go to rent a handgun from a gang for $100. The going rate then was $150 an hour, or you can buy it outright for $500. The point I'm getting at, if this is information that is known, why don't we have a major sting operation to clamp down on these criminals who are renting guns, not to go skeet shooting, not to go to the gun range, but presumably to kill rivals? I mean, this is preposterous.
I've actually had the experience of, I was in a bar talking to other lawyers about firearm law. And, at some point, because I'm in the bar, I've had a few glasses, I go to relieve myself. And somebody followed me into the bar bathroom and said, hey, do you want to buy I heard you talking about guns. Do you want to buy one?
Jeez.
And showed me and I was like, I'm a lawyer, dude. And we were talking about firearm law. And he went, oh, sorry. And by the time I was done, he was gone, right? He just vanished.
Holy.
But
that's incredible.
The thing is that none of this stuff makes it difficult for criminals. It's not terribly difficult for criminals to acquire these things. And the more we clamp down, the more they smuggle in. It's the limit on the sort of smuggling market is basically purely how many criminals want to buy one. Because as long as there's somebody who wants to buy an object that fits into this space that they can sell for $1,000 or $500 or whatever, profit, there's going to be people who are willing to smuggle those. You just, a suitcase worth of, full of handguns is worth a lot of money to them. So there's always going to be that smuggling problem. The thing is that most people are not looking to shoot each other because most people are fundamentally decent people. And if you address the root causes of crime, like why you have people, dealing drugs and so forth, that's the vast majority of these shootings are happening from people whose occupation is criminal. It's not like somebody who's just going around and just, gets mad. It's somebody whose lifestyle is criminality. If you can disrupt that, you can disrupt the criminal use of firearms. But it's not the shooting sports community. It's not the people who are out there hunting. It's not any of these things. These are the wrong groups to target.
Yeah.
And you can focus, it's like if you're trying to prevent cancer, you know, and you're sort of going and you're looking at it and you're saying, well, this one thing causes 0.01% of cancers. Okay, but maybe you should look at the thing that's causing like 80%,
Yeah.
you know, because every dollar you spend chasing that ever diminishing, you know, number is not actually helping when you could be going after the big chunk. And the issue is it's hard to go after, you know, criminality and so forth, and politically, they don't want to take the steps that would be required to do it, because often it requires things like realizing that if you've got somebody who's committed their life to criminality, that they're not going to change their mind over a 30-day sentence, right? It's, you know, there's a certain point where we need to go and say, is our sentencing regime doing what it needs to do? And I mean, I'm a criminal defense lawyer. It's better for me if, you know, if not, but at the end of the day, you know, is this what's best for society, right? Or we know that a, you know, small percentage of people, and it's because they've sort of committed themselves to criminality, committed disproportionate number of offenses. And we do very little about that, and instead we target people who commit no offenses. It's, you know,
right.
Incredible.
It's bizarre.
Just because we probably have Ian just for a couple more minutes, because we have him for the first half of the show. Ian, I want to talk to you about this announcement of the Safe Social Media Act and the fines included in that. So apparently we're supposed to be protecting children on the internet, which I believe is a parent's job, and stopping the sharing of graphic images, which is already illegal in certain circumstances. But Heritage Minister Mark Miller said that companies not complying with this could receive fines exceeding 3% of their global revenue, and that enforcement would rely on international cooperation and existing legal agreements to enforce judgments abroad. And as you said, good luck. Good luck to the feds on this. We heard Marco Rubio say that censoring American platforms will become a trade issue. So as USMCA continues to fall apart around us, I think this just adds fuel to the fire of the Americans' ire against us.
Well, it's not just a trade issue. The UK has already run into this problem. They've got, you know, Ofcom, and they issue like huge fines. They just, you know, go to like 4chan. They're like, we're going to fine you $10 million. And 4chan goes, okay, we don't care. And they're like, okay, well, just for that, it's 20 million. And they're like, we still don't care. The thing is, the US is not going to be inclined to enforce Canadian, you know, these ridiculous fines on US companies for activities that the US considers lawful, and not just lawful, protected by fundamental freedoms, because, you know, freedom of speech. Canada has freedom of expression, which should also cover this. The constitutionality of these bills is something that I think is dubious. But if we go to, you know, if we go to the US and we say, look, we have just decided to fine Google 3% of their revenues, like not their earnings, like not their net, we're taking it off the revenues. The US is going to say no. And the only thing we're not going to see a situation where the US, you know, complies with this. What this actually threatens is those fundamental agreements for reciprocal enforcement of judgments. Right now, if I sue somebody who's an American, I can quite likely, you know, enforce that on, you know, on them in the US, because we've got those reciprocal enforcements. Similarly, like if I go to Vegas and take out a loan for $20,000 and then flee back to Canada, Canada will enforce that judgment. They'll say, you racked up that debt, you gambled it away, that's on you, you got to pay them. But if we start like screwing around on this and saying we're going to start fining these companies for existing, because really a lot of this makes it very difficult for something like YouTube to exist. We may see either those companies will just block Canada entirely, or, you know, because a lot of companies have said, we'll just pull out dealing with Canada. So we might end up finding ourselves geo-blocked from most of the world. Or we'll see those companies going, well, I get that those are your rules. We don't have to follow them. And our government can just sort of impotently keep assigning fines that the foreign governments are not going to enforce. The US is not going to allow us to shake down Google for 3%. You know, China's not going to allow us to shake down any of their companies.
Yep.
We're going to end up with a situation where Canada keeps making demands, and those demands are no longer going to be respected in the international community. So it's quite a shocking move for the government to make. It astounds me.
Yeah, they never think of the unintended consequences of their bad ideas. You know, that's why we don't have news on Facebook. They thought they could shake down Meta, and the social media companies responded in kind and just blocked us. Rumble, I don't think, is in France because of France's rules that they apply to social media platforms. So,
once upon a time, Rumble was a Canadian company.
Absolutely.
It was and it was a Canadian success story. We had this company that was formed in Canada, was starting to challenge, Google. They're not as big as YouTube, but they're growing. They're becoming quite a respected platform. And what's happened instead is that Rumble said, the government started passing these various laws or talking about these various laws, and Rumble said, we got to leave. They bailed. We're going to see more companies saying we cannot serve the Canadian market. I just spoke to the CEO and one of the founding partners of a Canadian tech company who's saying, if this goes through, we will have to leave Canada. We're driving investment out. We're driving companies out because we're creating a market that is one of the most oppressive and one of the most invasive, and they don't and can't play ball with this.
Unbelievable. And Sheila and Ian, I think if Mark Carney were a firefighter, instead of being equipped with a hose, he'd be using a flamethrower to put the fires out. And what I'm getting at is that we know the US-based big tech Silicon Valley giants hate this, and they've lawyered up. We know that the Trump administration hates this. And I'm just wondering, when is this elbows up initiative ever going to kick in? When are we going to get this trade deal? Why is it that not a month goes by without the Carney Liberals pissing off our biggest trading partner with some stupid legislation, this being the latest? I almost believe it's intentional. I think with Brookfield, now a U.S. company, with Mark Carney's portfolio, presumably mostly U.S.-based companies, I don't think Mark Carney is serious about having Canada succeed, because what's good for Brookfield and what's good for Carney's portfolio is good for the Prime Minister. So this elbows up is a fantasy, and this latest rabbit hole they're going on down. And let's face it, again, let's not kid the kidders, as they say on the Midway. This is a Trojan horse. It begins with, that character in The Simpsons, oh, think of the children. So we bring in this legislation to ostensibly protect children. And then where does it go from here? What other bits and pieces of the internet or social media and so on and so forth is clawed back for our protection? So I'm not buying anything that these shysters are saying.
Yeah, I don't want these people anywhere near our freedoms.
There's the thing about never confuse or never attribute malice to something that's adequately explained by ignorance. But you get to a point where my sort of flip side of that is that any sufficiently advanced ignorance is indistinguishable from malice.
Mm-hmm.
If you're bad enough at it, and the Liberals have run and repeated elections on being the champions of liberty and freedom. They're like, we're the party of the Charter of Rights. But like, these new moves are some of the most egregious attacks on, freedom of expression that we've seen, certainly in my lifetime. And so I don't think they can lay claim to that anymore. It's a pretty serious issue there.
Yeah.
So
Well, you know, Ian, as the saying goes, ignorance is bliss. I don't know what that means, but I'm happy.
No, that makes
Anyway.
one of us. We have to hit an ad break. We did start late. We kept Ian for 30 minutes. Ian, before we let you go, just let me thank you for your expertise and your advocacy on behalf of firearms owners just like me. How do people find the very important work that you do breaking down some of these bad laws and legal issues, not just in Canada, but like on your YouTube page, you cover stuff from everywhere.
a little bit of everywhere because,
Yeah.
there's all sorts of issues, and quite frankly, the Liberal Party is making focusing on Canadian issues kind of a dangerous game.
Sure.
They're pushing that out. But I can be found Runkle, Runkle, of the Bailey. It's on YouTube, it's on Rumble. You can find me in various places. So check me out on your preferred platform, or Ian Runkle on Twitter. So
Great. Thank you, Ian. We'll talk again very, very soon. Let's hit an ad break. We'll come back on the other side.
You know, folks, in my many years of reporting for Rebel News, I've covered corrupt politicians, rogue bureaucrats, and even parking enforcement officers who'd rather take a nap than write some tickets. But I have to say, this is a first. Apparently, I'm now available as a gift. Rebel News has launched something we're calling shoutouts. Here's the idea. You pick your favorite Rebel News journalist, maybe that's yours truly, or maybe it's someone else, that's okay. I won't take it personally. You tell us who the message is for, what the occasion is, and any details that'll make it feel personal. A name, an inside joke, a few things we should know about them. The more info you give us, the better the video. We'll record a selfie-style video and deliver it straight to your inbox within 3 business days. Birthdays, graduations, anniversaries, retirements, Father's Day, Mother's Day, Christmas, you name it. Messages are available in 30, 60, and 90-second increments, starting at just $100. Need it fast? Add 24-hour rush delivery for an extra $50. And every dollar you spend goes directly toward supporting Rebel News and our independent journalism. No government bailouts here, no corporate strings, just Canadians helping Canadians to keep telling the truth. Give the gift no one saw coming. Visit rebelnews.com/shoutouts. That's rebelnews.com/shoutouts to make your request today. I will be waiting.
Canada's been told to just quit smoking for decades, same message over and over, and yet millions of Canadians still smoke. So let's ask a follow-up question. For those who don't quit, what about change? In 2026, Canada has options that didn't exist years ago. Smoke-free alternatives for adults who would otherwise continue smoking. That doesn't mean risk-free, it means informed choice. If you don't smoke, don't start. If you smoke, quit. But for those who don't quit, change could still be part of the conversation. That's why Canadians should check out unsmoke.ca, an information resource focused on smoke-free alternatives and honest facts, not judgment. Put the lighter down, Canada. Learn what your options are.
Alrighty, we're back. I thought we had one more ad. I thought maybe we had the burn ad. I thought I had more time. Hey, Olivia, I put it in the schedule, but I put it on the list, but it wasn't on the schedule. I watched the Finance Minister, Francois Philippe Champagne, and our Ethics Commissioner get absolutely grilled by the Conservatives and, to their credit, the Bloc yesterday in the Ethics Committee. Why? Francois Philippe Champagne's wife is the VP of Environment at Alto. Now, Alto, for those of you who don't know, in the West, we're paying for it, so get to know it. It's a $100 billion project, a light rail transit project between, I guess, Toronto and Montreal. through Ottawa. So only fancy people in the darkest heart of Laurentia will use it, but we have to pay for it. And the special provisions for Alto were in the budget. And that means that for several months now, Francois Philippe Champagne has been advancing this project, debating this project, voting on this project, while in direct ethics conflict with the project. So much so that he actually alerted the ethics commissioner about the potential conflict. And yet he never did recuse himself from any of this. And it also came out in the ethics committee yesterday that not only is Francois Philippe Champagne's wife a VP, who, by the way, the executives over at Alto got $2.8 million in bonuses just very recently. Again, taxpayer-funded project. And not an inch of rail has been laid yet on this thing. But he hired an Alto executive, $12,000, to help with his budget presentation. Can you imagine? And then he said the reason he did this was because he wanted to double check the French grammar in the budget. The entire federal bureaucracy is bilingual. Francois Philippe Champagne, his first language is in French, and the entire exchange where this was revealed was done in French. So tell me why they needed a $12,000 proofreader who also works for Alto, this $100 billion company where Francois Philippe Champagne's wife works. And I'm like, what is going on at the ethics commissioner's office? Well, wouldn't you know, the Conservatives revealed what is happening at the ethics commissioner's office. Because I'm like, why are they getting away with this? Why isn't anybody getting in any real trouble? And why hasn't anybody gotten in any real trouble like forever? Remember Randy Boissonneau and the other Randy? So Randy Boissonneau is in the House of Commons voting on pandemic restrictions while being the partner in a company that imports PPE. So he can vote on things that directly benefits his PPE company. Why didn't he get in trouble when it was very clear through his text messages that he was like an active participant in the company with his weird alien-looking partner, I forget his name, who wore ladies' shoes. He looked like he was made in a lab to be a weirdo. That guy, I can't remember his name. But anyways, the Conservatives busted this wide open. Why aren't the Liberals getting in trouble with these ethics violations? Olivia, please roll the clip from, I think it was Michael Cooper yesterday at the ethics committee. This is why. I can't believe this is going on. But the ethics commissioner's office has an ethics conflict and nobody seems to care.
But now your time is up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner, who in your office worked with and provided advice to Minister Champagne in respect of his potential conflict of interest in relation to Alto?
The person who was assigned to him, like everybody, every minister has a specific person assigned to him or her, who is this contact person.
And who is that person?
I don't identify my employee. It's my office that does it. It's not a single employee. It is, this is the contact person. Okay. He or she then consults with others.
Then let me ask you more specifically, was Martine Richard involved in providing advice to Minister Champagne?
As I say, it was a general opinion. It's the position of the office that was conveyed by the person assigned as his advisor. Okay. Madame Richard is my top legal advisor. Whether she was involved in this or not,
yes. Well, she's also the sister-in-law to Dominic LeBlanc, and on April 7th, 2026, Mr. Barrett sent a letter addressed to you in relation to concerns about potential conflicts of interest involving the minister's involvement in voting on and moving various budgetary motions and the Budget Implementation Act in relation to advancing the Alto project. Was Ms. Richard in any way involved in reviewing that letter?
I'm sorry, I am my Miss Richard is my legal advisor. She has disclosed the fact that she is the sister-in-law of Mr. LeBlanc, and anything involving Mr. LeBlanc and his conflict, she is filtered out. We have a filter inside, and she does not touch it. And
she doesn't touch what, Commissioner?
I beg your pardon?
She doesn't touch what?
Anything that has to do with Mr. LeBlanc or questions of conflict of interest regarding.
But she is your senior general counsel and with the responsibility for investigations and legal services. So I presume that any time there's a letter written to your office requesting an investigation, that would come across her desk. Is that fair?
Of course it would.
Okay.
But as I said, if it has anything to do with anything comes in that it concerns Mr. LeBlanc.
I understand, but you've answered my question that Mr. Barrett's letter would have come across her desk, and she would have been involved in providing advice to you in respect of.
Say what she would have assigned it to somebody, whether it was handled or not. But I don't know why the internal workings of my office. Did she assign it to someone else, or was she involved? I'm sorry, but I am not disclosing to you the people who work in my office and so that you can hold them out as having made mistakes or not. I'm responsible for the advice that's given in my office, and I take responsibility for it.
It is rather,
Mr. Cooper, go ahead.
It is concerning that we have the sister-in-law to the minister, LeBlanc, a senior minister in this government, involved with responsibility for investigations that would have been involved, or at least the whole issue surrounding Minister Champagne coming across her desk in relation to the very specific issues.
I think that's it. I think we get the point. I think that, but isn't that crazy? The sister-in-law of a senior Liberal cabinet minister is the intake person and then assigns investigations if necessary, and then provides legal advice about whether or not this is a conflict of interest to the ethics commissioner, and yet the ethics commissioner doesn't see a problem with that. He says, well, she's not dealing with any files relating to Dominic LeBlanc, so that's good enough.
Well, first of all, Sheila, I just want to say, when they finally get around to choosing the next James Bond and doing the next James Bond movie, forget about central casting for the supervillain, Conrad von Finkenstein. I mean, just come as you are. I mean, that might be the best Bond villain since
Straight out of central casting, that guy. Straight out of central casting.
From the appearance to the accent to the tonality, you name it. But seriously, Sheila, you know, when it comes to conflict of interest, it's sometimes you even want to avoid the appearance of a conflict of interest, but we're way past that Rubicon. As you said, when you have the sister-in-law of a cabinet minister, when you have a wife of the cabinet minister, of another cabinet minister involved with this Alto company, that is a blatant conflict of interest. But here's the deal. Even if they are found in violation of the ethics legislation by the ethics commissioner, Sheila, what is the penalty? We know Trudeau was found in violation a few times.
$100, I think?
Yeah, a few $100. I call that the cost of doing business. That's not even chump change for these cats.
That's what Justin Trudeau paid, I think, $100, maybe $300.
Yeah.
For his vacation to the Aga Khan's Island. I think that's a good deal. Like, can't get that on points. Like, he went to the Aga Khan's Island, got a free trip. RCMP was provided security. We give the Aga Khan's Foundation money, which was the conflict there, and Justin Trudeau got paid between $100 and $300 worth of fines. In the United States, 10 years in jail? In influence peddling?
That makes our laws an absolute joke. You know what it's like, Sheila? If I was parked in downtown Toronto and I went over my meter limit and I got a $1 fine, or if I was speeding 50 kilometers over the speed limit, you're going to be fined $1. Okay, that sounds good. That's nothing, right?
Right. Like, it's just so atrocious that you have the wife of a cabinet minister at Alto. Then you have the sister-in-law of a cabinet minister at the ethics commissioner's office. Of course they're going to investigate themselves and find absolutely nothing wrong. Like, it's so crazy that anybody on the outside looking at this thinks this is mental. But then you have the ethics commissioner saying, this is all on the up and up. How dare you? How dare you accuse us of these things?
And when you have Champagne and LeBlanc as part of the Laurentian Liberal elites, this stench won't stick to them. They'll still get reelected.
Yeah, so who's going to go after them?
There's no
the CBC?
penalty whatsoever to do the right thing, Sheila.
Exactly. Just also from committee, and then the last thing I think we need to talk about is the taxpayer-funded all-ages Pride event, but also from, good Lord, you can, in 2026 Canada, you can read that and not even stop to realize how bizarre it is, because it's just another headline in Canada. But the Liberal chair of the Health Committee abruptly shut down a meeting and ran out of the room during the Prescribe IT investigation. So let's watch this.
Yeah, I'm just curious because I think Mr. Genuis was talking about the amendment. Now I'm a little, I don't know if you're still on the amendment or you're back on the motion that you introduced. Because you're talking about production of documents now.
Madam Chair, it is just a minute. It is he's right on because he's on his amendment, and I see the watch at 5:30. I call the meeting adjourned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, so for people
the
who
wife
don't
has
know,
supper on. I got to beat rush hour traffic.
For people who don't know, Prescribe IT was this plan that was sort of pushed forward in 2017, so of course under the Liberals. It was designed to replace fax machines in doctors' offices. There's a thing called email. Okay, you could just email things now. But they proceeded with this. It was supposed to cost $400 million. It ballooned to $300 million. And doctors and pharmacists didn't use it. Why? Because you can literally have the doctor email the pharmacy. That's what my doctor does. And then extensive use of consultants, steep executive travel budgets, a nearly $900,000 annual compensation package for the CEO, Michael Green, before this thing collapsed in on itself like a dying star. And the Liberals basically provided no oversight to this. It's like the Green Slush Fund or Arrive scam, but this is medical Arrive scam. And they don't want people asking questions. The thing is, I don't think Liberal voters care. Like, I don't think Liberal voters care about a $250 million program designed to replace fax machines when the private sector already did that with email 2 decades earlier.
By the way, Sheila, you do realize there's maybe one generation, perhaps 2 generations, that have no idea what you're talking about when you say the words fax machine.
I know. You know who still uses fax machines? I think the CRA does.
Really? Okay,
yeah.
Then.
I'm not sure why.
I can't remember if the NHL is still using it for the trade deadline, because I remember there was one big whopper of a trade. I think, of course, the Leafs were involved, and it never went through because the paper got jammed in the fax machine and they missed the deadline. But Sheila, why is everything a fiasco? I mean, I'm going back to the Kathleen Wynne Liberals. We had a project called eHealth. And as I understand it, it was supposed to have all the hospitals in the province of Ontario linked up. And at the end of the day, the Minister of Health at the time, George Smitherman, said, sorry, boss, but $1 billion is unaccounted for. Really? What happened, George? It fell between the seats and the sofa? I mean, Sheila, imagine that. Imagine what $1 billion in cash looks like.
Holy.
Okay, we're talking wheelbarrows, and somehow it just goes missing, and somehow here we are in 2026, and doctors are still using fax machines?
The thing is, the doctors aren't using fax machines. They're using email. The government decided that they were going to fix a problem that didn't exist and spend $300 million on it and give a CEO of a company that was actively imploding in on itself approximately $1 million per year in annual compensation without any checks and balances. And then you ask questions and they're like, boom, gotta go. Traffic's bad, gotta go.
That is a clip for the ages, Sheila. That was
This is why I watch committee. Like, House of Commons, there's a lot of theatrics, but you really see the inner workings of bad government at committee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which was all the more reason why Mark Carney was obsessive in a Captain Ahab mode to get that much sought after majority, which he did get. We still don't know, did he get it by the carrot or the stick? In other words,
I believe it was carrots and sticks.
Yeah.
Why can't it be both? And I saw this in action yesterday at committee. So the bloc brought forward a motion to have the ethics screen of Champagne produced, as well as the letters back and forth between the ethics commissioner and Champagne, and it was shut down because the committee is now stacked with liberals.
Yep, there you go.
Yep. Thanks.
What a disgrace.
Last topic, and let's hit this because it's on the headline. This is from our friends over at Juno. Taxpayer funded, because these things all are. All ages Pride event had fetish and BDSM gear on display. The Ajax Pride Festival in the Greater Toronto Area, sponsored by the municipality, Pride Durham, and attended by Oshawa City Councillor, featured twerking drag queens and bondage fetish gear. It was billed as all ages and family friendly, but apparently it featured sexualized performances and adult themed displays in plain view of children. The activist who recorded this stuff, and by activist I mean for common sense and parents' rights, recorded a caregiver handing a young girl a $5 bill and encouraging her to tip a drag queen after the performer had just danced sexually for the audience alongside a publicly visible fetish gear tent and BDSM kink flags. My God. Sick.
Sheila, what I don't understand, I mean, 'twas ever thus, there were drag queen performances. You could go to, say, Toronto's Gay Village in the Church and Wellesley area and take in a performance, but it was age restricted. This is the key. And I don't have any problem with those performances. Look, it's not my bag. I'm not going there, that's for sure. But if you are the age of majority and you want to go into a club and watch this kind of stuff, hey, you're free to do so. Why is it we're incorporating children into this? And by the way, what does Pride have to do with displaying a fetish in public to children, nudity, twerking? Where is the connection between that and the idea of being proud? I don't get it. I think this is all about indoctrinating children, and it is despicable. And I say that because look at how many products we have an age restriction for. Liquor, cigarettes, lottery tickets, fireworks, pornography, all age restricted. But when it comes to this, men pretending to be females and dancing obscenely in front of children, oh no, anything goes. I'll tell you, Sheila, there's a steak dinner for you if you can explain the logic behind this, other than this is purposeful indoctrination.
Yeah, of course it is. Of course it is. I and also, you know, I don't like the idea of celebrating pride. Pride is what caused the angels to fall. You know, we're supposed to exercise humility. Don't be ashamed of yourself if you've done nothing to be ashamed of, but also shame is a powerful emotion that precipitates change in oneself. And instead we're celebrating the opposite. Yeah, you're right. There's all sorts of things that are age restricted for kids, including movies, if they show graphic content. And this is just on the street.
Yes.
And if you don't bring your children to these things, they're sort of like, what are you, a bigot? No, I'm just a normal person protecting the innocence of small children, which is what we're supposed to do. You're only a child for like this much of your life. You shouldn't be exposed to adult things. You've got the rest of your life to be exposed to these horrors.
100%.
We should be protecting the little ones.
Childhood is such a perishable commodity. And Sheila, it gets even worse. I mean, later this month, there'll be the Pride Parade in Toronto, and you mark my words, there will be dozens and dozens of people going completely naked. Again, I asked the question, what does nudity have to do with pride? I can't square that circle. But will they be charged under the criminal code for committing public indecency? Absolutely not. Not a chance. And nobody wants to see that. And when you're in public, there will be families, they'll be walking down a street, and the families with children have to see that. Nobody wants to see that. I know you don't want to see it, Sheila Gunn Reid. When we went to that nudist colony last summer,
man. I'm a
you
prude.
almost fainted.
I didn't know where to look. I was like, you know what? I guess.
I knew where to look.
Oh, you sure did. But I was like, I guess I just burned my retinas by staring at the sky. That's what I do now. Yes.
Yeah, don't worry, folks. We're crying on the inside. Okay.
Yes. I am. When I see things like this, where they expose the little ones, I'm just team millstone. Jesus said, and I'll end on a Bible quote and we'll wrap the show. Whoso shall cause one of these little ones which believe on me to stumble, it would be profitable for him that a great millstone should be hanged around his neck, and that he should be sunk into the depths of the sea. I'm team millstone. Don't expose the little ones to this stuff.
Is saying something like that illegal yet with all the carny censorship bills?
Come and get me. Come and get me. I don't care. All right, let's wrap the show unless we have any chats today. Nope, we're good. Wrap it up, Dave.
Everyone's enjoying the beautiful weather in the World Cup. Well, anyways, folks, thank you so much for tuning in. I thought that was a wonderful discussion we had with Ian Runkle, and check out his work. We will be back on Monday. I think I'm on a caper on Monday, so it's probably Sheila and another Rebel News personality. In the meantime, have an awesome weekend. And as always, stay safe and stay sane.
In Canada, firearms owners like me understand the importance of safe, effective self-defense options. That's why we're proud to have Byrna as a sponsor. Byrna's less lethal launchers are designed to help protect you and your family without taking a life. Byrna offers peace of mind, accessibility, and a practical layer of personal security for Canadians who value safety. Learn more at byrna.ca/rebel. That's BYRNA.ca/rebel.
For generations, many Canadians have preserved more than just firearms. They've preserved history, tradition, competition, memories. But under Trudeau, and now Carney, heirlooms, estates, collectibles, and competition firearms now have to be surrendered and destroyed. While violent gun criminals get pass after pass, openly ignoring any legislation, lawful gun owners are trapped in an increasingly unfair legal system. But we can help. Canada's National Firearms Association's Save Firearms program offers the legal pathway to preserve what matters, while we work towards a political solution. Don't let yours be next. Save history, save heritage, save firearms. Visit nfa.ca today to learn more.